Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Musicast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here at the very beginning of the show, I think Joy has got something for us. So over to you, Joy.
Well, as Tim has mentioned, he uses the Spotify's occasionally. We've all heard of that. And if you pay for premium, you get how many hours of audiobooks is it, Tim? I don't remember what the hours is.
I think it's 15 hours a month. I mean, for me, it's worked out very well because I tend to listen to them driving back from gigs and driving back from practices. So it's rare that I burn that out. But I've heard people complain about it because they say it's not enough.
Well, for me, it goes both ways. I sometimes I am the kind of person who gets obsessed with books and reads them very quickly, and then I can go 6 months without ever picking up a book again or listening to one. You know what I'm saying, Tip? Like, It just varies for me. But recently, I started listening to Britney Spears' "The Woman in Me," which is the biography that, you know, everybody was all over the headlines a few months or however long ago it got released. But it was in 2023, everybody. I'm sure you guys saw it. I highly, highly, highly recommend it, regardless if you care anything about Britney Spears' music, if you care anything about her as a person, like if you have any interest in just learning about things. What is so cool is, so for example, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I'm going to give you guys examples of what I mean. So you know how like there's been iconic moments of Britney Spears where we've seen it, like the Diane Sawyer interview, or where she, you've talked a little bit about how she was kind of, the way that they talk to Britney in interviews is different than the way they talk to Justin, and all these like pop culture movements we've talked about. Or like when her and Justin both wore denim and that outfit became, like from the VMAs, or that different moments that we have seen from our perspective. Even like when she got married for 72 hours, she talks about from her perspective. But it's mind-boggling for me to see the way she thought about it and the way the media portrayed it and the way it was being, force-fed to me from her perspective. And she has a very different voice than I was thinking. It's very raw and it's very blunt. Like she's just straight, says exactly what happened. This is what happened. This is how I felt about it. I haven't gotten into the part too much about her and her father, like where they were, where she was court ordered and everything. I haven't gotten there yet, but I listened to the first 16 chapters in a whole day at work to put in perspective, everybody, how quickly I went through the first 16 chapters.
Now, does she narrate it?
She does the first intro, and then it's I can't remember what her name is, but she said that it was too, and when you go into it, she does a little thing and she's talking. You can tell it's her because it's her voice. And she says, basically, I was going to narrate this myself, but it was a little too hard for me. It's a little too raw, too emotional. So she does like the first few pages and then she hands it over to somebody else.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I've almost had the opposite. I'm currently working through Burt Reynolds' autobiography. And, I love Smokey and the Bandit. I love Hooper. I love all of the classic Burt Reynolds stuff. They have a professional voice person do the intro, and then Burt narrates it. Now, the problem is Burt was probably 80 plus years old, and he doesn't have a good voice on it. And it's very hard to listen to.
And that would probably be something you have to listen to in small pieces, I would imagine.
Yeah, I was listening to it driving back from practice last night. And I think they must have been recorded over various days or weeks because some of the chapters sound better than others. And the one last night didn't sound too bad at all. But some of them, his voice sounds so frail. And, it's nice that it's Burt recounting his story. But at the same time, as a listen, it's not as nice to listen to.
That makes sense to me. I could see how, especially, and his voice probably has gotten lighter over time, almost makes it hard to kind of like focus it on what he's saying. Michelle Williams, that's the girl who does I don't know why I called her a girl. She is a grown woman, Joy. That is the woman who does the voice over her Britney's book now. She was in the movie Brokeback Mountain and Dawson's Creek and a few other things. So she's like an actress. She has a very nice spoken voice. And she kind of she actually kind of sounds a little bit like Britney. So when they change the person over, it's not that far-fetched, if that makes sense.
Well,
very similar. But yes, highly recommend for anybody who has the Spotify's, or if you prefer to read it, I mean, that's fine too. It's a little bit harder for me now because when I read a book, Tim, I'm almost always going to sleep. So like if I'm actually reading books put me to sleep. I kind of set myself up for that. So I have to listen to them a lot.
Yeah, well, as I've said before, I don't really enjoy reading books. I just find it a real chore. Even for something that I find fascinating, I find it a real chore. However, audiobooks, absolutely. I like it when someone reads it to me.
Me and Tim are just children. Just please read us the book. All right. Now, what did you have to tell the people today? I almost said this morning.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I should just reveal once again, it is Friday night, and we're a little looser on a Friday, it seems. We've done a number of Friday night records, so it always goes off the rails, it seems.
Yes. Well, so far, we're starting out pretty good, but I can't be graded. Give it about 30 minutes where this goes. I don't know.
Yeah, our traditional recording night is a Wednesday, but then it slipped to a Thursday, and lately it's been Friday. So who knows?
Life lives on. All right, Tim, what you got for them?
Okay, so they've just published the list of the 2024 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction people who are going to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I just thought I'd go through the list and see if anything sort of sticks out to you. So we have Mary J. Blige. Mariah Carey.
All right.
And finally, Cher.
I mean, of all of them, I feel like Cher fits more of the rock and roll lifestyle.
Absolutely. You have the Dave Matthews Band.
I mean, I'm surprised they haven't been introduced before. But to be fair, they're one of those bands that had they had a few hits all at once and then they kind of just sizzled out. They're not a huge band, but they live close to us.
The fan base love Dave Matthews. If you love Dave Matthews, you love Dave Matthews hard. But you're right. I think in sort of for most people, they sort of came and they went. I
mean, for me personally, that's how I kind of view them.
Yeah.
All right,
you have Eric B. and Rakim, which is actually someone I'm aware of. I think they're like a rap hip hop duo. They had a song called Paid in Full.
Well, Tim, you beat me on that because I've never heard those words before in my life.
And also you have Foreigner.
Wow. That's what we would have assumed was already in there.
Yeah.
I would have assumed that.
Hot-blooded. Check it and see.
Just don't sing it during COVID times.
No, that would on a minibus at work, for example, on the day that COVID breaks. I wouldn't recommend that.
That will go down in infamy as one of me and Tim's greatest moments or our lowest moments. I'm not sure how we grade that. But anyway, continue.
Okay, we have Peter Frampton.
Another one that I would have just assumed was already there, but
yeah, me too. But as you know, somebody from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominating committee did some really bad things and was fired. And I think he was holding back a lot of these classic artists because he had a beef with them or some.
Oh, yeah, I've seen some of the headlines about that.
Some nonsense like that. You have Jane's Addiction.
I mean, I'm not surprised they weren't in there, but I do think that they're worthy. At least they're rock.
Absolutely. You have Kool and the Gang.
I mean, I wouldn't call it rock, but I love that they're there.
Yeah, I mean, but how many trophies are they going to have to give out? Because like Kool's Gang,
we've spoken about this in the last episode.
We've spoken about his gang.
And then like that, what I instantly thought, how many members are like going to be on stage with them? Is it going to be originals? Is it going to be the 74th version? No one knows.
No, nobody knows. That will all be revealed at the induction ceremony that will be on later on in the year. Okay, we have Lenny Kravitz.
Wow. I really would have assumed he was already in there.
Yeah, but you have to be active for 25 years.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that piece of information. That makes more sense now. Wait, Dave Matthews has been active for, I mean, I guess they have. It is 2024.
Yeah, your first commercial recording has to come out at least 25 years prior to the year of nomination.
Thank you for making me feel really old with that Dave Matthews fact. I appreciate it.
But yeah, Lenny, he's been nominated. We have Oasis.
Oh, that's going to upset some of the British people who were for that other band.
Yeah, I didn't like Oasis when they came out. I thought it was generic rubbish. The Sands of Time have been a little bit kinder to Oasis to me. And there's a few songs of those I really like, Champagne Supernova being one of them. And I think I told the story of why I like Champagne Supernova. But I would say on the whole, it's kind of meh for me. But a lot of people like Oasis.
I have the same kind of thought process about them that I have about Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're radio filler to me.
Yeah, I think you're right. I would probably listen to Oasis over the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Red Hot Chili Peppers is like 3 good songs and a lot of filler.
there's just there's a subset of bands, and these people they've got diehard fans. I'm just not one of them. In my brain, I just associate them as radio filler. That's not to insult them. They're making millions, and I'm not, and they're selling out arenas. But it's just the truth. That's what my brain associates them with.
There we
Anyway.
are. We also have nominated this year Sinead O'Connor.
Oh, well, I mean, another one that's kind of interesting. I love her, but she's not exactly like mainstream by any stretch. I mean, her SNL thing is obviously famous, but
Yeah, I think it's probably she's been nominated because we lost her recently. And maybe, her
that's a
music
good
is
point.
her music is, there's again a few really good songs, but I think it's probably more her rock and roll attitude and standing for what she
Yep,
believed in and all that kind of stuff. I think that's probably got her nominated.
that's for sure.
Okay, we have a Tribe Called Quest, who I would not know what they look like or sound like if they walked in this room.
Isn't that you said Tribe Called Quest? Hold
Yeah.
on. Let me Google this, everybody. It's a hip hop group. Yeah, okay. I'm not crazy. They did that one song. There's one song I know by but I can't even think of what it is. Yes, but I have heard of a Tribe Called Quest. Continue.
Okay. When I think of Tribe Called Quest, I think of the help desk ticketing system we have at work, which comes from Quest Technologies. But there you
Not
go.
related.
Not related at all.
I think that song's called Can I Kick It or something.
I have
But I've
no,
definitely heard it once or twice.
no idea. Okay. We also have Sade. Have you heard of the 80s group Sade?
Yes, yes, I have.
And they had a song called Your Love Is King and some of that.
Yep.
Interesting fact, the name of the band is Sade, not the singer.
Singer, which is a common misconception, including me, who only learned that a few years ago.
Yeah, I think the singer's name was Sade Smith or something,
something.
but the actual act Sade is the band, not just the singer.
Yeah, I found that out when I was, what was it? There was a YouTuber I used to follow. Their name was Robin something, and they did all the kind of the remixes that I used to show you, Tim, and they would do all the different samplings and stuff. And they did it, and they were talking about it, and they played one of their songs in one of their samples, and I went back and figured it out, and people were commenting about it. And I had heard Sade, but I had always assumed it was just the lead singer, and so that's how I figured it out.
The whole band. And Sade, of course, performed at Live Aid.
Oh yeah. That's somebody nobody ever talks about, though, when they talk about Live Aid.
Yeah, Live Aid, that David Bowie, Elton John, Queen. I mean, that's what you normally remember. But I mean, there was a lot of other. Nick Kershaw performed. Spandau Ballet performed. Boomtown Rats performed.
Yep. I was like, after you said that, I went, oh yeah, they did. That sounds bad, but it's truthful.
Okay,
Anyway.
and rounding out this list of the 2024 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominations, Ozzy Osbourne.
What? I mean, I guess they saved the most rock for last.
Yeah, I think Black Sabbath have already been inducted. I'd be very surprised if they hadn't already been inducted. But I think this is probably Ozzy as a solo artist.
And with the 25-year thing you were just saying, that makes sense because he's later after his Black Sabbath days.
Yeah, I mean, he Blizzard of Oz and all that kind of stuff. My favorite solo Ozzy album is No More Tears.
I have that album. It's quite good. I actually like Ozzy I actually prefer, I think, some of his solo music over Black Sabbath. I think I heard just a little bit too much of the hits of Black Sabbath, especially being in the South and stuff a lot around here. He was very popular. As Tim has talked about, there's some bands around here that just everybody's obsessed with. And you can only hear Crazy Train somewhere so many times before you go crazy. So with that being said, I prefer his solo music. I wonder if it's kind of like you were saying, Sinead O'Connor, isn't Ozzy in really bad health right now?
My understanding, yes, he didn't finish his farewell solo tour. I mean,
Yeah.
he barely finished the Black Sabbath reunion farewell tour. But I mean, I think the COVID sort of put the plans for his tour to one side, and he tried to do it, and he had to cancel, and he had to get it became a whole thing. And I think in the end, even Sharon, who's such a business person who likes to make lots of money, I think even she said shut it down.
Yeah, I saw a thing with her talking about he wasn't in great health. I mean, to be fair, he has kind of seemed like he was moving in slow motion for going on, 30 plus years. So it's hard to tell, but I think that's part of drugs And substance abuse problems may have led to some of that, Tim. And then wasn't there like an accident on like an ATV or something at one
That was
point?
it. Yeah, he had a severe head injury.
It was on like the Ozzy Osbourne show, which I never watched, but I remember hearing about it. And then yeah, so that doesn't surprise me. I wonder if maybe they wanted to try to get him in now. That sounds bad. I don't mean like I feel like he's going to pass, but I know he's not in great health and he's older.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, he should be in there. I mean, he
Yes,
is
he deserves to be in
legendary,
there.
absolutely legendary,
Absolutely.
and should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And he's banned from ever playing in Utah, if anybody was wondering.
There we are. And as I said, when I went to San Antonio, Texas, I saw the famous monument that he urinated up, which apparently got him
Wow.
banned from San Antonio or something.
He's got a lot of bands out there. Him and they couldn't and they stopped selling Evanescence in Utah when Charlie was in high school. There you go.
Fantastic. Okay, so that was just at the beginning there of the episode. I just wanted just to talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, this week is my turn, and I sort of took a little bit of a leaf out of Joy's book from the last episode, where I decided I wasn't going to actually speak about music songs. I was going to speak about something to do with the world of music. And one thing that we hadn't really spoken about very much was about legendary music venues.
Oh, that's a cool one. And kind of ironic because, as for those who don't know, I was writing Tip earlier. I have been on a little mini staycation because I took a few days off of work because I just needed a break and I hadn't had one in a while. And you're allowed to do that because I'm an adult. And so, I mean, Tim knows what I mean when you just need that mental break for a few days. And so I've been binge watching Behind the Music, like the old school Behind the Music. And there were so many different things that were going on about venues. So I'm going to be curious if it ties in. And today, I told Tim I was watching Hall and Oates, so obviously Daryl's house came up. I don't know if that one's iconic, but it did come up.
Yeah, it hasn't quite come on my list of legendary music venues, but I don't know. Probably if you compare the amount of people that watch it, maybe it is legendary. I don't know.
Well, what was interesting, Tim, is they said that like it was iconic in its own way because it really did put them back on the map as far as like they started charting again after Daryl's house because they were trying to find a way to like stay relevant. And he was able to do this by bringing in all these modern day artists. And Pete Wentz, or was it? I think it was Pete Wentz. I want to say it was Fall Out Boy, one of the lead singers. It could have, maybe it was another one, but he said the only thing you need to know about writing a good pop hit, everything can be found in Rich Girl.
I would probably agree with that.
I would too. I thought about it for a minute. I was like, wait a second, he's not wrong. When you're talking about pop hits, like it is a great pop hit that like I don't have you ever met anyone who's like, I don't like Hall and Oates? Like who says that? No one.
Well, as we know, there's even a phone number you can call for Call and Oates.
And now every time I hear private like that, like I don't know, like I can't. Anyway, so nothing has to do with anything, Tim, but I'll start the iconic locations with Daryl Town. All right. Well, what's your first place, sir?
Okay, so the first one here is the Royal Albert Hall, which is in London, England. I should ask the question, actually, as we go through these venues. Have you ever been to the Royal Albert Hall?
No, I have not. I know what it is. I've seen it from the outside, but I've never been inside of it. It's got that. It's like a round building, right?
Yeah,
Big
it's like
round building.
an in the round circular building. It opened in 1871 by Queen Victoria, and I believe it was dedicated to her husband, Prince Albert. I think that's the story with it. It can hold 5,272 people. And it says it hosts over 400 events each year. And, you know, it's a lot of diversity with what it hosts. It's rock and pop and classical, corporate events, all kinds of stuff have happened there.
Oh, I'm sure. And 1871 is pretty new by UK standards.
Absolutely. I mean, it's effectively a brand new building.
I remember when we were talking with some of Tim's friends from the UK, and they were like, and actually, I will say, Tim, that was one of the trippiest things for me when I was in Europe, specifically when I was in Greece, that you would just be walking and then you'd be like, at like this like rubble from 300 BC. And I'm like you're just a normal town, la la la. And then you look over and right here is like some old monument from 300 BC. And in America, it's not like that. You're not walking and you know what I mean? You're like, there's usually like an area for those things. And our old stuff is probably like 1871. It's not 300 BC. And I remember when we were talking to your friends from the UK, they find it funny. They feel like America's so much newer still to this day, even though we've been around since 1776. But I mean, you know what I'm saying, Tim? I don't know if you have you thought about that as being somebody from the UK and then coming to America, like the age difference?
Yeah, I mean, I lived in a house in Twickenham, a shared house in Twickenham, which was probably 100 years old when I was living in it.
Gosh. And it's just so interesting because like I don't know why that just threw me off. Like I remember, what was it? I want to say it was like Mount Olympia. Me and Mom were just walking down the street, just like, just because we didn't really plan out our days. We just went and had fun and did whatever we wanted to do. And I'm like, and now I'm standing by this rubble. Like, where did this come from? And it was just so interesting to me. But anyway, yes, it's kind of funny that 1871 seems relatively new for the UK.
Exactly. Well, let me just tell you a couple of other things about the Albert Hall. I have been there a number of times. I saw the Brian May Band there in 1998.
Wow.
And they were supported by Then Jericho.
Then Jericho. I'm not sure I'm familiar with Then Jericho.
It was a band that had a song called Big Area, which was an 80s kind of rock pop crossover hit. And I remember we was watching Then Jericho, and they're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And then somebody saw Brian May 58 floors up in the air. All you could see was his massive hair, and everyone just started looking at Brian May and not the band, and then he disappeared. So, but yeah, I saw the Brian May band there, and then I think it was 2009 or 2008. I can't remember. I saw the Steve Miller Band at the Albert Hall.
Was Hannah with you?
Yes, because her ambition was to see the Steve Miller Band. She'd been saying this even in the time before I met her, when we used to email and stuff, before we even met in real life. She always said she wanted to see the Steve Miller Band. And they famously used to play the Aspen, Colorado Jazz Festival every year, and none of her friends would ever wanted to go with her. So when she was living in England with me and I saw that Steve Miller had a new album out called Bingo, and he was playing at the Albert Hall, I secretly bought tickets and I surprised her with the tickets.
Look at you, Tim. Hannah needs better friends. I would have went with her to go see Steve Miller Band. Come on. Why wouldn't your friends want to go?
Exactly. But it was a great gig. I mean, when I saw Brian May, I was down on the floor. It was supposed to be seated, but they took the seats out because Brian May was filming it for a 3D film, and he wasn't happy with the footage, so it's never seen the light of day, unfortunately. But when I saw the Steve Miller Band, we was in one of the boxes which goes around sort of the ring of the Albert Hall, and it was a really good experience.
Huh. I see. I always imagined more of lots of opera being done in this place for some reason, from what I've seen from the outside.
Yeah, they do opera. There's all kinds of music goes on at the Albert Hall.
I know that the Eurovision's been held there before too.
Yeah, I could believe that.
Good old Eurovision, which I still have the weirdest concept of that I don't think is correct. I don't know why, but when I go back and watch all the different Eurovision people, it's always something different than what I expect it to be. Do you watch it, Tim? Do you watch it every year?
No,
are you a Eurovision person?
I used to watch it years and years ago when Terry Wogan used to do the commentary, and it used to be a thing. And then Terry Wogan stopped doing it, and it became Graham Norton. And then I just completely lost interest. It has a cult following, always did have a cult following. I don't know if it has the same cult following now. The other problem is Eurovision now is so political. I mean, it always used to be, but it wasn't overt. One country wouldn't vote for another one country for another one. Or you'd get the UK was involved in some war, and then other countries wouldn't vote for. And it's just, I don't know.
Huh. It's so weird to me that that's where it comes out at. Is in these, who's the best singer is how they're going to compete. And Graham Norton, it's one of those people. So, I've seen the Graham Norton show. I mean, for those of us in America, most of us have seen clips of the Graham Norton show. He's always very, I don't know. There's something about him that, I kind of like and I don't like at the same time. I don't know what it is. It almost seems like he's very immature, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. There's something off about that man.
Yeah, he used to have a comedy show long before he did chat shows.
Yeah.
His humor doesn't particularly appeal to me. People seem to really like him. I would not go out of my way to watch Graham Norton.
I feel like I know what it is. I think he takes a bit just too far for me.
Mhm.
Like, so for example, there was this bit he did once with Rihanna, the singer. Apparently, she is notorious, Tim, for taking her wine glass with her to go when she leaves restaurants.
Mhm.
And he would like, oh, so did you steal this? And he like flashed, a picture of her carrying it. And she's like, no, no, no. And then he flashed like 10 more of her doing it. And it just kept going, kept going, kept going. And I think it was just a little too much. I was like, okay, I get the joke. She's also probably spending millions of dollars and probably left a $10,000 tip on the table. Who cares? It's a wine
Yeah,
glass.
if you leave a substantial tip and you walk out with a $3 wine glass, who cares?
That's what I said. I said, I really don't think the restaurant's upset that Rihanna came to their restaurant and she walked out with her wine glass. But it was just kind of funny because I was like, I don't know that I really care for him. So maybe that's why I don't watch Eurovision. And this has nothing to do with Albert Hall. Let's go back.
Okay, all right. Well, let's move on to the next venue. The next one is another London venue, and this is the O2 Arena in London. Now, have you ever been to the O2, Joy?
I've seen it from the outside. And I know you've been a few times and you've said that you're sad that you didn't go see some of the other stuff that was there.
Yeah, so the O2 Arena used to be the Millennium Dome.
Yeah.
So just before the Millennium, the government built this thing in sort of the east of London near Greenwich. And it's this huge dome, which was supposed to be a temporary structure. And it's got like a canopy over it. And
it looks temporary. Like I would think it was temporary.
Yeah, yeah. And it was supposed to be this celebration of British life exhibition. I never went to it, but a lot of people did. And it was seen as a complete money pit, 100% money pit. The government invested so much money into this thing and this exhibition. They got artists involved and stuff. They threw so much money at this. And then when the millennium happened and the exhibition closed, I think it closed a couple of years into the new millennium. It sat there desolate for years and years and years. And, it was tabloid newspaper fodder. And then someone came up with the bright idea of turning it into a music venue. And what they did is that they copied the Staples Center in Los Angeles. It's exactly the same layout under the dome. The dome structure over the top, but they built it inside. It's exactly the same layout as the Staples Center. And the Staples Center in Los Angeles apparently is the most acoustically perfect arena of its size.
Huh. So, but see, when I've seen it from the outside, so if you've never seen it from the outside, guys, it's like it looks like a giant white tarp is over it. It's got little metal things pointing out of it, and it's on like I guess, I almost said the ocean. I don't know. Is it ocean there that it's at, Tim, or is it like a lake? What's the water that's by it?
It's the Thames.
Okay, whatever Tim said, it's by that.
Yeah, the River Thames that runs through London.
Okay, I almost said ocean, and I was like, I don't think it's an ocean.
Well, eventually it turns into the ocean, but it's a little bit further inland.
I love when Tim's like, okay, Joy. Anyway, but it looks like a temporary structure. Like it looks like something that's perpetually under, like they're always working on it or something. To me, I don't know. Every time I see a picture of it, I'm like, it doesn't look like it's supposed to be there.
Yeah, so the stuff they've built inside is permanent, but you're right. The outside is like a canvas canopy almost, and I think they have to constantly repair it because it was never designed to last that long. It was designed for this temporary exhibition. Now, I've never seen a gig in the O2 Arena. However, they had a British music exhibition there, and Hannah took me there for my birthday one year. So I've been inside. There's restaurants and shops, and there's a small venue there. I think it's called the Indigo at the O2, which is more of a kind of club style gig thing. The actual O2 Arena holds 20,000 people. It's a big arena type venue like that.
I would just imagine it's kind of similar to what a football field looks like on the inside.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. And also, if you didn't know, O2, I don't know if you know why it's called the O2 Arena. O2
Oxygen?
is well, there's that. O2 is a mobile phone network in the UK. And that's it. They had a sponsorship deal.
Okay, that makes sense. I've seen the O2 with the little orange logo thing or whatever. But I was thinking, and in my mind, I was like, maybe O2, like 2 oxygen, and then the water's the hydrogen. I don't know what I thought, but my brain went to chemistry. That's funny, though. I guess I never knew that it was supposed to be temporary. But I know you've said there's concerts that you wish you would have went to because it was right there, but you never quite went.
Yeah, like when Prince played there for 14 nights. What am I doing in Hounslow when I could get there in 45 minutes on the tube? I mean, what am I wasting my time being at home when I could have seen Prince?
It's one of those things, Tim. You can never go back now.
No, and I think that's where Michael Jackson was set to play as well for his
Yep.
residency.
That is where he was set to play, and that's where the This Is Us, I think, was supposed to be like kicked off at, or where it ended at, or something. Has something to do with This Is Us, and the whole concert was built around the way the stage is set up.
Absolutely. And that's why all that rehearsal footage, the This Is It documentary, was done at the Staples Center in Los Angeles because it's an identical venue.
There you go, guys. I knew it was supposed to kick off, like he was supposed to do a bunch of shows in Europe, and then he was going to make his way back to America or something. But I know the first few tickets, and those were the ones that had actually sold, were the ones in the UK, because he was going to be starting there. And so those were the people who ended up having to be refunded, because there's a bunch of footage of them talking to people around like England that were upset, because they had bought tickets. I mean, they weren't upset at him like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you died. They were upset that the situation happened and they didn't get to see it. Because it's kind of one of those things that, like, what concert always stands out to me? Oh, yeah, this is an example of something she talks about in Britney's book. You know how Britney did she did the Motown 25 Yours, Ours, the one with Michael, with where it was like
Motown 25.
Was that the one that she did with him?
No, Motown 25 is when he...
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
I say Motown 25 is the one where he moonwalked for the first time.
There's one where he did I'm just going to Google it, guys. Britney Spears, Michael Jackson. It was like a remembering his music concert, something that he did that was, she did The Way You Make Me Feel, and it was like a huge concert that happened in the UK. Let's see here. MJ, Anyway, so if you Google Britney Spears and Michael Jackson, you can find the version of The Way You Make Me Feel. And there was this big concert they did in the UK. And it's funny because they show the different people in the audience a lot. Like, there's a lot of audience footage in this concert, Tim. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, to me, I always wonder what it would have been like to because I always think about how I never got to see Michael Jackson. And, I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. How cool would it have been to be one of those people in that audience and I lied, guys. It wasn't in the UK. It's Madison Square Garden, New York, 2001. So with that being said, I always just thought, though, if I was one of those people who they got on camera footage and because they redo this concert and play it on TV all the time, how cool would that have been, Tim? To have that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, there's all these kind of opportunities. I mean, obviously this was in this country, but all this stuff that I missed sitting at home in Hounslow. I'm
fairly certain I've always thought this concert was in the UK, but apparently it was in New York. So with that being said, guys, it was in 2001. I don't remember. It was just like this thing where they did highlights. I remember Shaggy played, Usher was there, Britney Spears was there, and then Michael himself was there. And at one point he's sitting in the audience. It was like a remembrance of his music. That's why my brain said Motown 25, but I was like, no, Sean was right. But yeah, I just remember thinking, could you imagine? She talks about that in her book as one of the most iconic moments of her career. And I always think about that. I'm like, it would have been so cool to be in that audience.
100%.
And I was like, but then at the same time, they probably would have caught me while I was doing something really stupid. And that would be the footage forever. They always talk to you know what I mean? They always get somebody dancing, looking like a weirdo, and then or their heads turned and they're talking. That would have been about right. And that would be on the footage for the rest of my life.
Knowing you, Joy, that would probably happen.
I've been falling and tripping. They got on camera and I broke my ankle in the middle of the Michael Jackson, Britney Spears song.
Oh, dear.
Yep, that sounds like... Oh, today, Tim, I opened the fridge and the salsa fell out and landed on my foot. The glass thing of salsa. I have a big bruise on top of my foot, and I had to clean up a lot of salsa.
For all you bingo card holders out there, that's a Joy injury. If you can just check the box and we move on to the next one.
If there's one thing that you don't want to have to clean up, let me tell you guys, salsa is about the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I've had a salsa container fall out of the fridge and it makes an almighty mess together with broken glass everywhere.
And of course, I wasn't wearing shoes, Tim. Thankfully, I had socks on, but I wasn't wearing shoes. So then I had to worry the entire time I was going to step on a piece of glass. One time, I actually do have a horrible scar across the top of my foot. I remember when I was in high school, I dropped a plate on my foot. I was making my plate, and it cracked over top of my foot.
Oh, yeah.
I remember my dad bandaged me up and looking at me like, how? Because, I mean, I did it to myself. I dropped the plate on my foot. All right, back to music venues.
Okay, so this is another one in the United States. This is the Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado. Now, it's a very unique venue because it's what they call a natural amphitheater because there's two large sandstone boulders either side of the venue. And what they've done is they've sort of created seating and a stage at the bottom of that. Now, I've never been there. Have you ever been to Red Rocks?
I have seen it because when I lived in Utah, we visited this area. You could see it from the outside. It's really cool. There's like two rocks that are slanted down that like naturally make it. It's almost like when, speaking of Greece, it's almost like when you look and like the old school theaters they used to have in Greece that were almost like built into the mountains. Do you know what I'm talking about, Tim? It's almost it very much replicates that.
Okay. Yeah, I've always wanted to go and see music played there. I've got a Joe Bonamassa concert, which comes from Red Rocks, which is absolutely fantastic. And in fact, my friend Simon Small, who played in the band The Guilty Party, which I played in too. In fact, I replaced him in The Guilty Party. And a gentleman I was reunited with in Roanoke when his Queen tribute band played at the Roanoke Civic Center. That very same Queen tribute band played at Red Rocks. And I've seen some great photographs of him playing there. I mean, they had a really good crowd. I mean, this venue will hold up to 10,000. I think they probably had close to that when they played at Red Rocks.
Wow.
And it is just amazing. And I've seen video footage of him playing there and stuff. And it's what an experience to play there. And also just what an experience to see a band there.
Well, and I imagine I've never really, like I said, I haven't seen any bands there, but it seems like it's very keen to like EDM type music. Like I could imagine that being like a lot of light shows and stuff would be really cool, reflecting off the lights and things like that. I mean, there are a lot of rock bands that do like light shows, but I could see like electronic music being super popular there.
Yeah, I don't think they discriminate for genre. I mean, if people want to go there and have a great time, they do it.
I know. I was just thinking, like, it seems like it's kind of set up perfectly for that. But I mean, it's a beautiful area. It's right outside of Denver. It's not very far. If I remember right, it was only like 15, 20 minutes outside of Denver, Colorado. Like, it's not in the middle of nowheres per se.
Yeah. Well, maybe on my travels, I will get to go there because I really would like to see a concert played there. Okay, let me move on to the next legendary music venue. This legendary music venue is in Hounslow, Middlesex, in the United Kingdom. And this would be Lambton School. Now, as we all know, Lambton School is on Lambton Avenue in Hounslow. And of course, this is a legendary music venue because this is the first venue I ever played a gig at.
Is it the one that like is you playing on your channel that occasionally pops up on my YouTube music?
Yeah, if you go on my Tim O'Sullivan Guitarist YouTube channel, the band that I was in at the time called Utopia, we played a couple of concerts at Lambton School. And even long before that, when we had a band called Stud at school, we played on the stage at school. So yeah, this is certainly in my personal history is an incredibly legendary venue. Now, Lambton School was built in 1959. It was originally called Spring Grove Grammar School, but changed its name to Lambton School. And also, its legend goes a little bit further because it was here where I learned to play the guitar.
Well, it all comes back full circle. Well, I can say I've never seen a concert at this venue, Tim, particularly. But it's funny, though, because occasionally I've liked a lot of the videos on your channel. And so whenever I have like YouTube playing in the background or something, sometimes your videos will pop up and it'll be little Tim playing when he was a kid.
And you know what? I follow them on social media just because I can, because I used to go there. Well, yeah. And it seems to be, apart from a projector and a projector screen and some nicer speakers screwed to the ceiling, it looks exactly the same as it did when I went there.
No major renovations have taken place.
No, they demolished the Pears block and the Banksian block, I think, and built a nicer sixth form building and a nicer music building, and they got rid of those temporary hut things that were temporary all the time that I was there. But the actual main school building, I believe, is exactly the same.
I'm pretty sure my elementary school is rebuilt because My elementary school at one point was an elementary school and a high school because it was, and then they got like a big high school that everybody locally went to. It was like a whole thing. But
Hmm.
it got rebuilt a few years back, and it was definitely needed, Tim. Definitely needed. But with that being said, I recommend everyone go to Tim O'Sullivan on YouTube, and you can see, is it Tim O'Sullivan Guitar? What is the name of your channel, Tim?
My channel is Tim O'Sullivan Guitarist.
I mean, that is pretty obvious now that you said it.
Well, there's a photographer called Tim O'Sullivan, and I think there's another couple of musicians called Tim O'Sullivan. They're imposters, I tell you. So I had to have Tim O'Sullivan Guitarist, and also my fabled Knight Rider video is on Tim O'Sullivan Guitarist as well.
Well, there you go. That's our listening recommendations for the listeners.
There we go. Okay, so anyway, that probably is the most legendary of all
Obviously.
music venues, certainly in my universe.
Fair. All right. What's next?
Okay, so this one is the Sydney Opera House in Sydney, Australia. Now, have you ever been to the Sydney Opera House?
I can definitely say no to that, but I've seen many photos of it.
Yeah, I've never been. I've only ever been to Perth. I've never been to Sydney.
I've never been to Australia.
No, well, it's a fantastic place. You should go to Australia if you ever get the opportunity to.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's beautiful and there's lots of beaches. So, I mean, of course.
There we are. Well, apparently this is the number one live music venue in Australia. And it says it does about 2,000 events every year. Now, I didn't realize that there's a number of different halls inside the Opera House. I thought it was just like one big venue, but apparently not. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different like areas inside it with the different sizes and what have you.
Okay. I mean, there are like all the little multiple tiers, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really seen the layout or the floor plan of it, but it's always structurally, it looks amazing from the outside. It's such an iconic building.
Anytime we watch a movie in America and they're going to Utah, I almost said Utah, they're going to Australia, this is all you see. It doesn't matter what part of Australia they're going to, Tim. As their plane lands, it's like the Opera House is over here. They're 7,000 miles that way and on the other side of the country. But to us, this is what you know of Australia. This and giant spiders.
Well, you sort of see the Sydney Harbour Bridge and then you see the Sydney Opera House,
Yeah.
and it's just that iconic
Shot.
combo that you see in that kind of thing.
And then a kangaroo appears.
There we go. Well, as I said, when I went to Australia, I saw mostly dead kangaroos at the side of the road, like you see deer. And my relatives actually had to take me to a zoo to see a real live kangaroo.
Oh my gosh. I have a question for you, Tim. So this is about zoos. It's not about music, but listen. So I was watching one of my favorite TikTokers. I actually sent you the video of her. She's in the UK, she's specifically in England. I know that there's a whole thing now with that, but she's in England and she lives somewhere close to London. I know she's at 30, 40 minutes driving. And she went to one of those drive, like where you drive through and the animals, like the monkeys and stuff, jump on your car.
Yeah.
Apparently those are popular in England. What I did not know is those monkeys are destructive. Did you know that? They ripped pieces off her car.
Yeah. Now, famously, there was a safari park, as they call them, in Windsor, called Windsor Safari Park.
Okay.
And that Windsor Safari Park closed and then it became Legoland Windsor.
Of course.
But it used to be Windsor Safari Park. And I always wanted to go there, but my parents wouldn't take me because they didn't want to drive their car through it and have monkeys rip bits off it. But my uncle, who was a little bit more carefree, took me through Windsor Safari Park in his old Ford Escort, I believe. And he didn't seem to care that there was monkeys sitting on the top of the car.
Okay, so what she had happened was her daughter was actually recording, and she was driving, and her daughter and I think her nephew or somebody was with them, and they had been through it before, Tim, no problem. She says when you go through this safari park, they warn you, they could damage your vehicle, and that's just a risk you have to take.
Yeah.
She said she had been through it before, no problem. Well, this day when she went, the monkeys were like on high alert and were ripping pieces off of everyone's car. And it ripped the back windshield wiper off the car. Like the rubber part where when you shut your door, like that like seals the top, It ripped that off. There was like a dent in the side. I don't know. She said it cost her. She took it to the garage, as she called it, took it to auto shop, as I call it. And she said it cost her 652 euros to fix the damage that these safari monkeys outside of London caused on her vehicle. And with the cost of emissions and what they spent at the like at the shop or whatever, because her daughter bought a stuffed animal, she said this event ended up costing her over 700 euros.
Crikey, O'Reilly. I mean, I could believe it. I mean, as I said, when I went through my uncle, it wasn't quite like that, but I've seen things like that, hubcaps and wiper blades and logos and all kinds of stuff.
She said they were just ripping off things off of everybody's car in front of them. There's nothing they could do. They just had to sit there. They couldn't like get out and look or anything. They just had to drive through and hope that their car was still drivable by the time they got to the end. And, she said the whole thing was just like a boneyard for car parts. And I'm like, why are people still doing this? Now, in America, I have seen like drive-through safaris, but it's not like that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like a llama. I've never seen them with monkeys. That was what threw me off.
Yeah, that's classic in a safari park. You drive through an enclosure with monkeys and they will run up and rip bits off your car.
I never knew that. I learned something new today, guys. There's one in Fort Chiswell, Virginia, but like it's kind of like falling apart now. But back in the day when I was little, like there was llamas and maybe a horse or something, but never monkeys.
No, I've been to the safari park in Fort Chiswell.
Yeah,
but the bit with the actual animals, you go in an old school bus. You don't drive your own car around there.
Oh, I don't remember. I was a kid, but I don't remember monkeys ripping up vehicles or school buses. It's been a long time, Tim, but I do not remember any monkeys in Fort Chiswell, Virginia. Now, you've been to Disney World, right?
Yeah, I've been to Magic Kingdom in Florida.
So if you go to the animal one, the safari there is really cool, but they drive you through it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you're literally like, it literally looks like they put so much work into it. It's like you're on an African safari. Those animals like walk up to you, but I don't remember them ripping up cars.
No, it's certainly that's your UK monkeys.
Is that the difference? I don't know. But any of our UK listeners, don't go to the drive-through safari right outside of London unless you want to spend 700 euros to fix your car afterwards. That's my PSA.
There we go.
Anyway, we did not talk about anything that's ever happened at the Sydney Opera House. I'll let Tim take it from here.
Okay, well, then let's move on to another venue. So I couldn't do legendary venues without this one. And this is another one in the UK. And this is Wembley Stadium. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that Wembley Stadium now is not the same Wembley Stadium that it used to be. The Wembley Stadium that Queen's legendary 1986 Magic Tour concerts, the same Wembley Stadium where you had Michael Jackson perform there, and the same Wembley Stadium where you had Live Aid. That actual Wembley Stadium complex was demolished. So
I'm going to ask something really stupid, and this is probably going to go down in history. Is it a racing track?
No, it's essentially a football stadium. It's for soccer and sport and things like that. I mean, it's a multi-use venue.
That's what I thought. I thought it was for like racing or something.
No, it's not like what they call a dog track or like an athletics type thing. Though it has been configured for that.
Oh, okay, maybe that's what I was thinking.
But typically, it's going to be used for sports. It's going to be used for big soccer matches. It's going to be used for rugby matches and that kind of stuff like that. And then, of course, they use it for music. Now, as I said, the original Wembley Stadium, the famous Twin Towers of Wembley, that was long since demolished. I saw the Rolling Stones there. And I saw Bon Jovi there, and I saw Van Halen there at Wembley Stadium. And also in the Wembley complex, you have Wembley Arena as well, which is a smaller arena-sized venue, which a lot of bands play. And I've been to so many concerts at Wembley Arena, I kind of lost track. But when the Wembley Stadium now, it was demolished in 2002, and 2002 they started demolition, and then the new Wembley Stadium opened up in 2007.
Do they play Wimbledon there?
No, because that's in Wimbledon, not Wembley.
See, I don't know these things. I always thought that that's where they played tennis at too.
No, Wembley is one place, Wimbledon is another place.
I always thought that's where they played tennis at. You guys can tell I watch a lot of sport. I'm never going to live that down. All right, continue. We'll just let Tim talk about this because I obviously don't know what happens at this place.
But it must be said, like, Wembley is such a legendary venue. I mean, I think if you speak to any music lovers around the world and you mentioned Wembley Stadium, they're probably going to know what you're talking about because there's been so many iconic, legendary concerts. And I said, just coming from like Live Aid, for example, that came from Wembley Stadium.
I mean, and that's the one, it looks like obviously a giant stadium, but that's the one that, like, when I think of like any major concert, you know what I mean, Ted? Like, that's kind of the picture I have in my head of what you think of. I don't know. That's what comes to mind to me.
Absolutely. Even I read about Wembley recently because the Queen karaoke band that I don't really care for currently was just finished playing some concerts in Japan. Huge, like, dome thing in Japan, and all these huge concerts with all these folks who really, really love Queen, and they went to see them, and everyone had a great time. And they were apparently, if you like that incarnation of the Queen band, absolutely fantastic. And some people are saying that's probably that for them. Roger Taylor and Brian May are very much older now. Do they want to go out and do these big tours? But there were several articles I read this week saying, they can't really go out until they play Wembley just as a farewell gig. And even that is just mentioned because that's what you're supposed to do. You would do a massive farewell gig at Wembley.
So, question: why did they destroy it and like rebuild it?
Well, it was just a very old, creaky building.
So it wasn't up to like standards, I guess, or something of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to look through this article because the article I have here is the new Wembley Stadium. But
they do not place. If anybody was wondering, I repeat, they do not place. It is there, or have dogs race. Apparently, it's only the UK footballs. Because the England national football team, I do know, is based out of it.
Yes, absolutely, and that's where it sort of this sporting heritage comes from. I can't find the date of the original construction of Wembley. I think it was 50s or something like that, but it was a very much an older building, and it really was showing its age. And in terms of facilities, and probably there was problems with the concrete and all this kind of stuff.
Might not have been safe either.
Yeah, so it was probably easier just to tear it down and build a very modern Wembley that would last for years and years.
Kind of sad though, because of all the iconic stuff that had happened in the old one.
Yeah, absolutely. The famous Twin Towers of Wembley, that was legendary. In fact, their logo was the Twin Towers of Wembley.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where my brain goes when I think of it, because I've seen all those concerts that you were just discussing on YouTube 1,000 times now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and imagine, I mean, it's got to be huge though, right? Like, it's got to be probably able to fit like millions of people. Not millions, 100,000s, but
the current capacity of the new Wembley is 90,000. I think the old Wembley was maybe 70 or 80,000 or something like that. As I said, I went to the old Wembley twice, and I went to the see the Rolling Stones, as I said, and also Bon Jovi.
Oh, that's probably a cool one to see.
Yeah, well, the funny thing about Bon Jovi is that they played, I think it was they had 2 days, 2 sold-out dates at Wembley, and they announced a third date. Yeah. And they didn't sell out, and that's the day I went to, and it was only half full. It was weird.
That would be strange. I've never really been to a concert that wasn't sold out. Almost every concert I feel like I ever end up at, there's like, the only time that happened was when I saw, what band was it? Offspring. There had been, because I was in Charlotte, and this was at the PNC Arena. No, yeah, the one that's outdoors, not like the actual indoor thing, but the PNC place. And I was supposed to be sitting in the back where you don't have the cover, and I got to move up front because there had been a big storm that came through, and a bunch of people didn't show up. And so that's the only concert I've been to. But every time else, like when I saw Elton John, when I saw the Backstreet Boys, good show. Everybody's always been it's been like you're on top of each other.
Yeah, I've been to probably every variation of that, I would imagine, over the years.
That's true. I just need to go to more concerts. That's the answer to this question.
There we go. All right. Well, let's move on to another venue. This is another one in the United States, and this is Radio City Music Hall in New York City. Now, have you ever been into Radio City Music Hall?
Yes, and I met a Rockette.
Well, I'll let you take over because I've only ever seen it from the outside. I've never been inside.
So you guys know all the pictures. And actually, if Tim makes a note when we post this, I'll post the picture I took last year at Christmas at the City Music Hall. But when you're outside, you're downtown New York, the big trees there. There's you've got like the place where people can ice skate. That's the word I'm looking for. Right across on the corner, you've got Radio City Music Hall, and that's where the Rockettes do their show every Christmas. They're famous for their kick lines. When I was in high school, and we were with my show choir, and I've been in it twice since then. I've been outside of it a few times, but we went in, we saw a show, we saw the Rockettes, and afterwards we paid extra and you got to do a tour there. They took us around the back, and it has carpets. Like, you know, when you're in the movie theater, Tim, and you have those trippy carpets that are almost like make you kind of seasick in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but that stuck out to me as she was giving us the tour, all in the back of the Radio City Music Hall. It has those carpets. But the Rockette came out. She talked to us. She was in her outfit. She showed us where they do their rehearsals, and she showed us where they come out. She brought us behind stage. It was super cool. That was probably 2007 when I met the Rockette, I would say. And that's when I saw their show. But I mean, fantastic. I would tell anyone to go. It's worth the money. It's worth the wait in the line, because if you go during Christmas, you're going to be waiting outside for 2 hours. Do it. Absolutely do it.
Well, there we are. Yeah, so it's somewhere that I really need to go into. And, you know, I've been to New York a number of times. And in fact, my plan is actually for my birthday to go to New York City this year.
Look at you. Well, I would highly, obviously they're doing other shows, like they hold other things there. It's just they're known for the Rockettes during December, during Christmas time, but they do different concerts. I mean, there's lots of classical music that goes on there. I remember one time I was there and there was a violinist that did like a massive show. Different things like that happen in there. And it used to be, you know, you kind of bait it once you did the Radio City Music Hall. That was kind of like a term back in the day for older musicians. So I say, Tim, go. It's a really cool, like the way it's set up. It's very long, but the acoustics are great if you've never seen the inside of it. But yeah, for some reason, that entire time I was walking with the Rockette, the one thing that stood out to me the most, Tim, was the carpet. I can't tell you why, but it seemed really cheap. And like those like designs, you know, like at the roller skating rink or like at the movies, that cheap carpet that's got like weird patterns that's always like purple. That's what's in the back of the Radio City Music Hall. And I thought that was the weirdest thing, because that's not what I would have expected.
Maybe it fits in with the sort of Art Deco stylings of it. I don't know.
I guess, but it just threw me off. And like, for some reason, it's kind of like when I went to Disney World and we were on the Space Mountain. We did this program when I was with my choir, because we always did a bunch of this kind of stuff, where it was called the Science Program. It's called Science Yes. And you got to go early and go in, and they taught you about roller coasters and science, and, you know, because we were high schoolers. And they let us ride the roller coaster with the lights on. And I thought it was so weird, because it looks so cool when the lights are off, but when they turned it on, it was just like a warehouse.
Yeah.
Like your head's like going past like a wooden box and stuff.
Yep. I've seen the video on YouTube of Space Mountain with the lights on, and it's odd because it's just like a regular smallish roller coaster.
Without the lights on, because when you get on it, like the lights go down and music's blaring, and like it's like you take off. And when I went through it, I think Aerosmith was the songs that were playing. I think Love It at Elevator was playing, and like it's so cool. But when they turned the lights on, it was kind of like, am I like a warehouse? I'm like. On my head, like there's like nails sticking out of the roof and stuff. Like it doesn't look anything like I thought it was going to. That it stood out to me, and the carpets in the back of Radio City Music Hall. Now I wonder if they're still back there. I kind of want to sneak in the back and see if they're still there, if they updated. But anyway, there you go.
There we are. All right. Well, I think I've got about 3 more that I want to do for you.
It's a Friday night. We got time, Tim.
There we are. So this one is the Marquee Club in London. Now, is this a venue that you've ever heard of, the Marquee Club?
I mean, I know what a marquee is, but no, not Marquee Club specifically.
Okay, so the Marquee Club was a venue that was in Wardour Street in Soho in London.
Okay.
It did, towards the end of its tenure, it moved to different venues. I think it closed around 2008. It moved to Leicester Square, and it moved here, and it moved there. But the Wardour Street location was the most famous one. And I mean, you can pull up on the internet every musician you have ever heard of ever playing at the Marquee Club.
Oh,
I mean,
so it's one of those really old school venues that everybody played at.
yeah, Rolling Stones, Yardbirds, Zeppelin, The Who, Jethro Tull, Jimi
Was it like the
Hendrix,
cool
Pink.
place to go back in the day?
Absolutely. And even, later in the 80s and the 90s, it was a super cool venue to play. And a lot of like big acts would play like a fan club event or like a fans only type event at the
Small,
Marquee.
intimate type thing.
Yeah. And in fact, I played at the Marquee Club. I did a gig there on a Sunday night once with my band called Tag.
So you're effectively a member of the Who, the Rolling Stones, and I don't know, whatever else you named a minute ago.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting thing. It was like 3 or 4 bands on the bill on a Sunday night at the Marquee Club. And it was cool. There was basically no one there, but it was cool to play on that same stage. And I seem to remember the day after or the week after, I was in I think it was WH Smith's.
Yeah.
Which is a UK newsagent. And I was looking in some rock and roll book, and there was a picture of Aerosmith and Jimmy Page standing on exactly the same stage that I just played on.
Tim just sheds a tear.
Yeah.
Is it a small venue then? Is it relatively small? Like, how big is it?
I think it was a relatively small venue. I mean, it probably held 1,000 people or less than that. It was just, effectively, it was just a big room. The worst smell I've ever smelled was the lavatories at the Marquee Club. I will tell you that.
Well, that's good to know. That's always the worst stuff. Oh, were there carpets in the bathroom?
No, I don't think there were,
Okay.
but like if you think of every human output and every drug available and you mix all that together, that's what the lavatories in the Marquee Club smell like.
What a descriptor, Tim. Every drug available.
Yeah. If you mix all that together in a big old mixing pot, that's what the lavatories smell like.
What a beautiful visual. Thank you for that.
No problem. But yeah, I did play there. The backstage area was cool because the dressing rooms had like everyone ever had signed and put stickers on the walls and stuff like that. But of course, this was before cameras was invented, so I have absolutely no photographic evidence of this.
Oh, man, Tim. And Tim, for those who don't know, Tim has a very big archive and can pinpoint a photo in about 5 seconds because he keeps everything very well labeled.
Yeah, I mean, I never used to be this way. And I mean, certainly back when you had film cameras, you'd take 24 or 36. You go on a trip for 2 weeks. Like I went to Australia and I took 24 pictures or something. That's all you took.
Yeah.
But now in the advent of digital photography, I do like what I call accurate recording. And I've recently migrated from Amazon Photos to Google Photos. And the way that it can search text in a picture is fabulous. And even landmarks. So like if you want to find out when your Vegas trip is, you type Las Vegas and it recognizes landmarks.
And Tim has photographs of everything. Like when I say, like, his friends will say something and he'll be like, oh, yeah, I still have that photograph. And he brings it right up. He does constantly. I mean, it's wonderful, but it's just kind of funny because you're one of the few people I know who can, like, you're so well organized. He keeps Excel documents of times people called him the Australian. He keeps Excel documents of his lunch routines.
Yeah, I don't know. I like having my archives. I have probably everything that I've ever played on ever that a recording is available for. I have that. I have every piece of video that I've ever in every band ever I've got on my computer that's available. So it's been copied on VHS tapes and DVDs and everything like that. And also the photographic archive too. And I don't know, I just like having those personal archives. And even to this day, like I'll play a gig somewhere and people will stick pictures up on Facebook or Instagram. And the first thing I do is download them off there and put them in the archive.
See, one day, 100 years from now, they're going to be trying to figure out how our civilization worked and what it was like. And Tim's archives are going to be like the hieroglyphics of 2024. They're going to be like, God, they were really into guitars in 2024 because all they can find is Tim's historical archives that he's been keeping. And they're like, this man had 74 birthdays.
Though I will tell you that if you're an archivist like me, it's very important to back up your archive.
Yes.
So I do it several ways. Every month I make a copy of my entire computer, 4 terabytes, and I keep it in the house. I also have a second drive, which every other month I back up, which lives in a location away from the house. So I've got it backed up there. And in addition, all the pictures are backed up now in Google Photos.
You have your stuff backed up better than the U.S. government does their like secret files that keep appearing at senators' houses.
Yeah, offsite backups are very important, and don't trust cloud storage, because what does the cloud mean? Someone else's computer that could break, that could be taken away, that could be hacked, that could be wiped.
There's Tim's PSA for the No Name Music Cast listeners. All right, what's the next venue?
Okay, well, you can't not talk about legendary music venues without this one. This is probably the beginning of popular music as we know it, maybe the beginning of rock and roll, in fact. And this is in Liverpool, and this is the Cavern Club. Now, as we all know, this was a very popular club in Liverpool for many, as they used to say in those days, beat combos to play at. But most famously, this is where the Beatles got their start.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm going to be honest. That's what I know about them. This is where the Beatles got their start. I mean, which, like you said, kind of defined all of us for till the end of time. Now, were they called the Beatles at that time, or were they their old band name?
I believe when they were playing the Cavern, they were the Beatles. Of course, they started as the Quarrymen.
That's what it was.
Then they were the Silver Beatles, and then they were just the Beatles. This is where they met their future manager, Brian Epstein, for the first time as well, in the Cavern Club. Now, the Cavern itself was demolished. But it closed in 1973, and it was demolished. But they rebuilt it effectively brick by brick. Just across the street in 1984, and you can still visit the Cavern Club. I mean, it's not technically the same Cavern Club, but it's almost exactly in the same place, and they rebuilt it exactly the same as it was.
Have you been in the Cavern Club, Tim?
No, I've been to Liverpool a couple of times. I've been to Penny Lane and all that kind of stuff, but I've never been to the Cavern. It's always like when you drive to Blackpool, you might stop in Liverpool and see a few like your Beatles type places, but I've never actually stayed in Liverpool and toured those various places.
So is it like when they call it a club, my brain thinks it's also like a bar, but I guess it's only for music venues. It's not like it's like open like bar and there happens to be people playing.
No, the Cavern Club was very much a music venue.
Oh, I don't know why, but when I hear club, it makes me feel like it's something that's open for people to go in and drink. But maybe that's just a thought process for me. I don't know.
Well, it's in the UK. Of course, there was drinking.
That's true. That is true, Tim. Early 60s UK. I'm sure there was drinking happening.
as there is now.
I say that like it's changed. That's interesting, though. So what are there any other bands that you know got their start there, or is it mostly just the Beatles? Because that's what I associate with it.
I mean, bands of the day, the Who played there, Jerry and the Pacemakers played there. There was a lot of venues of the 60s who played at that venue. But, you know, famously, you think Beatles and you think the Cavern Club. You know, and there's footage of that. There is film footage of them playing at the Cavern Club.
So, what was I going to say? It was probably like 10 shillings or something to get in the door.
Wacky UK pre-decimal currency with a florin and a guinea and a...
You actually had to bring a chicken with you to get inside.
Oh, what was that all about? Pre-decimal currency. It just hurts my brain. 217 pennies to the pound and... something to the shilling. We don't even use the metric
system here. You're talking to the wrong person, Tim. Because I don't know. No, we do have a place in Virginia called the Barter Theater. Have you ever been to the Barter Theater, Tim?
No, I haven't.
So the Barter Theater is in, I think, Abington. I've been a few times. I watched Sweeney Todd there once, and I think I saw the Nutcracker. maybe something else, but I've been there a few times. And what it is, it's called the Barter Theater because it used to be when people would come, they would have to they would barter to get in. So they would bring like a chicken or something to get into this theater, and they kept the name. Because it's from because we and Tim are, even though we made a joke about how America's still relatively young, we're in literally the oldest state in Virginia. Virginia's the oldest state in the United States. And so I'm guessing it was literally from early 1800s. And every Christmas season and during different times when you go, they'll have, or at least one night a year, you can bring like a dry food or something like that. And it goes to charity and you give them that to get in. And that's how you get your ticket.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so it's still called the Barter Theater. There you go. It wasn't shillings, but you still had to bring your can of green beans with you to get inside.
There we go. Okay, so I just want to close this episode out with one last quote unquote legendary venue. And this is only legendary because I played it last week. And this is the Salem Civic Center. Now,
I am familiar with that one.
Yeah, so the Salem Civic Center, we have like two largish arenas in this area. You have the Roanoke Civic Center, and then not far down the road, you have the Salem Civic Center, which is a different town, but it's just a little bit closer to where we live in Christiansburg, Radford, etc. This is a 6,820 seat multi-purpose arena. It was built in 1967 in Salem. Now, and I must be said, having been in the inner catacombs of the Salem Civic Center, it certainly looks like it was built in 1967. You come in through the loading bay, and you can drive when you're setting up. You can drive in the loading bay and then drive into the venue onto the venue floor.
Yeah.
And it really is showing its age. I mean, I posted a quote unquote hilarious video of me showing the dressing room D at the Salem Civic Center, and it probably could be a little bit nicer.
It looks like an old high school to me, like even from the outside, Tim. So for those who've never seen it, it looks like a big high school auditorium kind of, because of the way it's like got the yellow and it's got the white on top. And then when Tim showed me the videos, like he looked like he was walking through like the corridors outside the locker room at my high school because they're old. You know what I mean, Tim? That's what it reminded me of while you were in there.
Yeah, but the other thing is that when you go to these, whether it's Wembley Arena or whether it's the Roanoke Civic Center or Salem Civic Center, most of the time when you go to these places, it's dark.
Yeah, that is true.
Some kind of show, so you're not going to see that. I was there at lunchtime with all the lights on, and you see it very much different.
That's kind of like me talking about how the carpets in Radio City Music Hall, because I was there with the lights on during the daytime.
There we go. But I mean, it was a lot of fun to play at the Salem Civic Center. It was like a police captain's ball or something we played at. I mean, it wasn't 7,000 people because they didn't use the side seating. They only used the area in the middle. Mm-hmm. But it was nice. We had a professional sound crew. We had a lighting crew. It was a nice stage. I mean, people seemed to like it. They rewarded us handsomely. I mean,
it's really close to that baseball field. Right down the road, I think there's a statue of a guy out front.
Yeah, and it was 25 minutes from the house. So when I finished my sound check at lunchtime, I came home. I came home for 4 hours.
It's all interstate. And it's got a really good parking lot. I hate when you go to those big venues and there's nowhere to park. The Salem Center has a great parking lot.
It does. Well, actually, I parked in the loading bay.
Well, look, I'm talking about for the Patriot.
Oh, for the riffraff.
Gosh, just because you played on the same stage as all those other artists one time.
Yeah, I played at the same venue as Billy Ocean. Let me tell you, I saw Billy Ocean at the Salem Civic Center 10 years ago, and look at me now playing at the Salem Civic Center. Me and Billy, we are like that.
What is it you call his the people who listen to Billy Ocean, Tim? What are his fans?
Seafarers, of course.
Okay, anyway, this episode really did hit off the Richter scales. All right, well, with Tim Seafarers, so how many people do you feel like were at your concert?
It's hard to say, 500-600 maybe. It was set up with like tables, like round tables, and you bought tickets, and then there was food and drink and stuff like that.
It was like a banquet.
Yeah, I would probably say 500 or 600 if I had to guess.
Did they do a meat raffle?
No, there was no meat raffle.
Darn. Missed opportunity. Were you the only band playing, or was there someone else playing?
There was us and a DJ.
Was the DJ good?
It's nothing I couldn't have done by Bluetoothing my phone into the PA.
I mean, to be fair, that's what DJs are now. They're not exactly disc jockeys anymore.
No, he had the Pioneer twin CD player things and scratching and beat matching, but there's nothing that I couldn't have done by playing Spotify and selecting the option to crossfade. I'm just putting that out there. I mean, yeah, good luck to the guy. I mean, he was probably
He got the gig.
Yeah, he got the gig. He was probably rewarded handsomely like we were. They like him. Apparently, the DJ gets booked. The same DJ year after year after year. They really like him. The bands, they rotate. So we probably won't get that gig again, but not because it's anything to do with us. It's just that every year they have a fresh one, and that's how they do it.
Well, there we go.
but you know, good luck to the guy. But yeah, I could have done that by Bluetoothing my phone.
I mean, I'm only just slightly jealous because why am I not doing this DJ work? Like, think about it, Tim. Get paid a couple $100 to go up there and do some like intros and outros and say, "Everybody raise your hands," and then play the cha-cha slide.
All the songs I have in my playlist.
Think about it for a second, though. Like, oh, everybody, woohoo, everybody ready? Okay, this one's highly requested. Click, and there's just a do-do-do, and then the cha-cha slide starts. And he's getting paid like good couple $100 to do that every time he does that. So maybe it's a missed opportunity.
Well, absolutely. As I said, when I used to go out years ago with Moroccan Soul, I used to do just a standalone DJ thing, and I did it for money, not because it was fun, and it was just I stopped enjoying doing it.
I've always thought about doing it, Tim, because like I know enough music. I want to say, and you guys can disagree with me, but I think I've got the right personality. You know what I mean, Tim? Like I could handle it. But the thing about it is you have to like load up your equipment and load down your equipment, and it seems heavy. And I can't bring myself to do it.
Let me tell you, every weekend since I was about 14 years old, I've been loading equipment in and out of my house. And my equipment now is the smallest it's ever been.
Yeah,
ever been.
Imagine.
I have a suitcase on wheels. I have 2 guitars in soft cases and a bunch of music stands and a monitor speaker and maybe a power reel sometimes.
And it's
that
so
is
annoying.
it. And it's so small. But even now, on my 1.5 trips to the car, I'm like, oh, this equipment. It's equipment.
While you're parked in the loading bay.
Yeah. No, while I'm parked in front of the stage.
See, that's the thing, though. As I think about this, I'm like, I could DJ, but then I'd have to bring my equipment back and forth. And then there's people who are highly intoxicated that are probably annoying and things of that nature. So there you go.
I know. Well, I've experienced every variation of this, as you would imagine.
So I guess hosting a music podcast is about as close as I'm going to get. All right. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to leave the people with?
Just be extra kind to everyone this coming week and all the weeks after that.
Agreed. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.